Monday, 1 p.m., and you're all here with me, Pospo, for Mostly Learning, and this week's BRAINCAST. Well, let me tell you a secret, it's not Monday. Well, it will be eventually by the time you watch this, but now it's Saturday. And in fact, I'm in my living room, but it doesn't matter. Let's all pretend it's Monday. Last week, under boiling hot temperatures, we listened how Dr. Marta Di Forti has been tackling one of the most long-standing and controversial matters in psychiatry, cannabis and its relationship with mental health, but also how the pandemic affected the cannabis market. Yes, there is one, and trust me, it's massive. This week, we switch the urban landscape of Camberwell and South London and travel up north to Leeds to meet a person that, to be honest, that doesn't need much of an introduction, really. I mean, she has been the president of the Royal College of Psychiatrists since 2017. And not only, she set up an entire school of psychiatry up in the north, the Yorkshire School of Psychiatry, Dean of the Royal College of Psychiatrists from 2011 to 2016, and co-chair of the Gatsby Wellcome Neuroscience Project. Do you need more? I don't. Professor Wendy Byrne, people. Prof, so glad to have you here today. Where do I find you now? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yes, so
I'm here. Yeah.
so glad to have you here today, Prof. So young Wendy starts her psychiatry training a few years back. At what point did you say, I'm gonna be the president of the Royal College of Psychiatrists?
Never. I never said that. I would have been totally amazed. If I could go back in time and speak to my younger self, I would have said, don't be ridiculous. So I never really had a career plan. Things just sort of happened one after the other. So I became a consultant in 1990, and I was always interested in training. Even as a trainee myself, I was interested in teaching, and I became the college tutor. And then things just sort of went on from there. I was the college tutor, then I chaired what was then the SHO training committee. I worked my way up, as you say. I became the first head of the Yorkshire School of Psychiatry. Where do you go from there? So Dean of the college came up. I stood for Dean and got elected. And actually, there's quite a tradition. So about half of the previous deans have gone on to become president. So as soon as I was Dean, people said to me, are you going to be president? And I went, oh, no, because I'd seen Sue Bailey do it. I'd seen Simon do it. And, I'd seen what a high profile and political position it was. And at that time, I didn't really have any interest in politics. So I never thought I would be president. And then when I finished as Dean, I really missed the college. I so missed it. So I stood for president, and that's how I ended up there. But it was never an ambition and never a plan.
And how difficult was it for a young female clinician to go up the ladder? And I say this with full insight into the fact that, male figures seem to dominate top leadership positions in most fields. Though I have to say that the college has indeed managed to keep a fair balance, at least in the most recent years.
I don't think it never felt difficult. It just was a step at the time. And I've had a lot of mentors and a lot of people who've helped me on their way. And actually, most of them have been men, one or two women, but it's mostly men who've helped me up the ladder. I think a big key was I have a really great and really understanding husband who didn't mind me working long hours and was okay with me being away. I mean, he works hard too. He's a radiologist and he's involved in his own college, but that was really helpful. But no, I never felt being a woman was a problem.
Amazing. And on a similar note, so how does the college ensure there are equal opportunities for everyone? I mean, there has been some controversy, for example, around the fact that the pass rates of doctors with a non-British medical degree were significantly lower than the holders of British medical degrees, which, to be fair, up to a point is to be expected.
So differential attainment is, you find that everywhere. So you find it in lawyers in America, you find it everywhere. We don't properly understand it. There's quite a lot of research going on, but we still don't really properly understand it. When I was Dean, we had a big review of the exam, looking at differential attainment and what we could do. We did come out with some actions which we implemented. But there's no simple solution. And really interestingly, even written exams have differential attainment, and written exams have differential attainment for people who were born in the UK as well. So if you're born in the UK, you do a little bit worse in the written exams. Now that is really difficult to explain and really difficult to do anything about. So we've done something, but not enough. You might have noticed that Adrian, who's taking over for me, Adrian James, one of his big things is going to be diversity and equality. And he's about to appoint 2 presidential leads to work on that. So hopefully you'll see more happening.
Fingers crossed. So
yeah.
Something that I never quite understood is, why we keep calling ourselves royal. So Royal College of Surgeons, Royal College of Radiologists. I don't find it really appropriate, especially being attached to the science and the profession of medicine. Health is for everyone, unlike the privilege that is inherent in the word royal.
So royal means that you have a royal charter, and that's about governance. So you can't get a royal charter unless you've got really good governance structures in place. And then you have to go back to the Privy Council to change your rules. So I think it's a really good safeguard. It tells people that we've got really good governance structures. And actually, we have a royal patron as well. I don't know if you know, but Prince Charles is our royal patron. I've met him. He's a really interesting man, and actually has done a huge amount. He's very keen on helping mental health problems, probably in a slightly different way from us. He's very into social prescribing. Done a huge amount to support social prescribing, and he runs a place called Dumfries House, which is originally a stately home up in Scotland, very deprived area of Scotland, and he's done a huge amount for the surrounding community, set up all sorts of projects to help with unemployment, things to help them with health. He's done a lot. I really admire him, so I'm proud of the Royal.
Fantastic. So now a big chunk of the Royal College of Psychiatrists role is training the psychiatrists of the future. But in order to train them, you first need to recruit them. And one of the college's initiative was the Choose Psychiatry campaign. I mean, I'm not going to ask you why people maybe want to consider psychiatry, but the opposite. So what do you think keeps people away from psychiatry?
So there's still a lot of stigma attached to mental illness. It's got better. It's got a lot better in the last 30 years. So when I was an SHO, one of my fellow trainees got quite severely depressed. And we knew that if people found out, that would be the end of his career. He would not be promoted and he would not progress, because at that time there was a thought that if you worked in psychiatry and you had your own mental illness, then you just weren't suitable. You should just leave, be got rid of. And we sort of covered up for him. He had treatment and he got better. Whereas now, of course, it's completely different. People can be really open about their own problems. Our trainee of the year a couple of years ago, the wounded healer, who I'm sure you know, very open about his own problems in a way that he couldn't have been 30 years ago. So the stigma's lifting, but it's still there. Interestingly, I went back to Southampton, which was my old medical school, and I talked to a group of trainees and foundation doctors there, and I talked about the stigma. And there was somebody there from the medical school, I think an associate dean from medical school, and she said, the stigma's gone now, it doesn't exist. And then 4 foundation trainees in the front row said, no, we want to do psychiatry, and we've been told not to. We've been told it's not a proper branch of medicine and we shouldn't. Yeah, no. So that is still happening. That is still happening. So the stigma is still there, and I think that's what puts people off.
Okay, that's sad. I mean, it was 2016 when you started co-leading the Gatsby Foundation and Wellcome Trust Neuroscience project. So this is a project that aspires to review the content of what doctors are taught in their journey to become a psychiatrist. So to tell us a bit more about it.
So yeah, the project's about neuroscience. So when we started, there was quite a lot of neuroscience in the exam syllabus, but it was being taught in a very old-fashioned way. So neuroscience has moved on a lot. It was actually being taught pretty much the way I was taught it when I did the exam all those years ago. So we've updated the syllabus, we've modernised it, we've done that bit, and now what we're trying to do is get everybody excited about neuroscience. So get neuroscience out there, because it's really interesting, progressing at an extremely fast rate. For the people who are training now, it's going to make a difference. So if you're a trainee now and you're going to be working for the next, 30, 40, however many years people are going to have to do, the neuroscience is going to make changes. New treatments are going to come in. I think we'll probably end up with a whole new classification system for our diseases, because at the moment, as you know, the classification is just done on kind of clusters of symptoms, not really on underlying disease process. So I think that's going to change with neuroscience and with genetics. I think that could change. So the trainees of the future need to understand the basic neuroscience, so that they'll be equipped to when these new treatments come through. It is a bit of a challenge because the up-to-date neuroscience is so interesting, but learning the basics is still quite hard work. We've tried to make it a bit easier. We have some TRON trainees online, our online training modules that are free to anyone associated with the college. We've got some neuroscience ones. We're writing some more. We're trying to jazz up the ones that we've got and trying to make it a little bit more interesting. So the project has done the hard work bit. It's changed the syllabus, and now it's really getting neuroscience embedded. We have a group of trainees, the neuroscience champions, and their job is, as you might expect from the title, is to champion neuroscience. We're setting up networks where neuroscientists and psychiatrists can get together and learn from each other. And we run things called brain camps. I don't think you've been on a brain camp, have you? I don't think I've seen you at a brain camp.
I have presented in one.
Oh, right, you have. Fantastic.
Which one? Yes.
Oh, right. Excellent. Oh, yes. I remember now. Yeah. Good. Of course you did. Yeah. So you know how good they are. And for people watching who don't know about brain camps, get together about 50 people, not too many because it's quite interactive. We hear talks from neuroscientists, cutting edge of neuroscience. Often the stuff they're talking about hasn't actually been published yet. And we do some sort of interactive kind of teaching things. And we usually end up with making a Play-Doh brain. Did you stay to make the Play-Doh brain? It's good fun.
No, I didn't. I'm sorry.
Next time. And I get mocked on Twitter about the Play-Doh brains, but actually it's a really good way of just making sure that you completely understand the anatomy of a brain and how things relate to each other. So yeah, we usually finish off with that.
It is. In fact, we use Play-Doh brains even, for the MSc students in the clinical neuropsychiatry. I think it's an excellent way to get hands. It's really amazing.
Yeah,
great.
There's actually a little bit of evidence about it. So actually quite a long time after we started using it, we found a paper from quite a while ago, from about 7 or 8 years ago. It was done in India with medical students, and they had some teaching on neuroanatomy. Then half of them made Play-Doh brains and half didn't. And the ones that had made Play-Doh brains scored better in the test at the end. So there you are. There's some scientific evidence that Play-Doh brains work.
There you go. So now getting through training is not an easy thing. So 3 years of core training, 3 years of higher training, lots of bureaucracy and tick box exercises, endless forms and competencies to complete. A few £1,000 examinations, let's not forget that, and memberships and legal cover, and years later, which is the absolute minimum, you are a consultant. So last year, a guy knocked on my office door. He was like, hey, I'm the new locum doctor covering the perinatal service for the next 2 months. He was earning nearly 3 times my salary. I felt really undervalued. I know that it's not all about the money, but how are we expecting people to apply for substantive roles in the NHS when they can just, locum the way through?
Well, a substantive role gives you security that a locum never will. And actually, I know there are some locum doctors in trouble at the moment because people are employing less locums during the pandemic. And I've been contacted by 1 or 2 people saying, what am I going to do? I can't earn anything at the moment. So it's not as secure. The NHS does look after you, not as well as it should, but it does look after you. I've had I had an operation just before I started as president. No problem, got paid the sick leave. They were very helpful when I went back. So the NHS does care for you. I think it needs to care better, but it does care for you. And then you would miss the continuity. So the wonderful thing about being a consultant is the continuity. All the time you're training, you get to know the patients and then you move on. As a consultant, you know patients for 10 years, 20 years, longer, and that is just amazing. So you'd miss out on all that. So I think, maybe locum for a little bit, but settle down, get your feet under somebody's table, get some security, and get that continuity.
It's not all about the money. Yes, we're on the
It's
same
not
page.
all about the money. It's not all about the money.
So during your presidency, the Royal College of Psychiatrists found that in England there is a wide disparity, with around 13 consultant psychiatrists for every 100,000 people in North Central and East London, while the East of England and Yorkshire and Humber have less than half that number. So just 5 for every 100,000 people. I am aware that the college on its own cannot just, start creating psychiatry jobs around the country, but it needs the government to do that. So being a member, so you are a member of the all-party parliamentary health group. So did you feel heard? Essentially, what I want to find out is, does the college has the power to change things, or do our pleas fall on deaf ears?
We have the power to influence the people who can change things. So we can't change that stuff, but the people who can talk to us. And I think probably the way to start, and this has been a problem for a long time. Remember, I was working in Yorkshire. I think the way to influence it is with extra training posts. So we know that if people train in places, they're likely to stay there. Although London's a bit of an exception. So a quarter of the trainees are based in London. And at times people have said to me, you've got to move some out of London. But one of the reasons that we haven't done is that they move themselves out of London. So people tend to train in London, and they get to a point where they've got to have a house, maybe a garden, a nice lifestyle. So, come to Yorkshire and you can have that. Stay in London, you'll probably be renting your whole life, some horrible little flat somewhere. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. That looks like is that a nice place?
Ring the bell, yeah.
But this is my breakfast room of my mansion in Yorkshire. Yeah.
Breakfast room.
This is my breakfast room. Yeah. Of my mansion, and I have a lovely garden. So it's a much better lifestyle. And if you're bringing up children, it's a much better lifestyle outside London. So we did track. There was one year we tracked a whole cohort. Everyone who got their CCT, we tracked them, and a lot moved out of London. So people are moving out of London. But even more. But if you want people to work in a place, it's better on the whole to train them there. Now we haven't been able to ask for new training places because we haven't had full recruitment. But this year, we're not allowed to say yet. It's under embargo. We're not allowed to say what recruitment is, but it's a bit above 99% and a bit under 101%. So now we can start asking for more training posts, and then we need to ask for those in the places where they don't have so many consultants. And then we need to create more consultant posts. Now the money is there. The long-term plan for England, the money is there to create more consultant posts. What we don't have is the people to fill them. So we need to train people up and create the posts and fill them. So I think it will improve.
Yes, fingers crossed again. So being able to be heard is one challenge.
Yeah.
The other, though, being the fact that you are the voice and have been the voice for the last 3 years of nearly, is it not 19,000 members? And
nearly 19, yeah.
You can't keep everyone happy for sure.
No, you can't keep everyone happy. I've done a lot of traveling around the UK, a lot of traveling around the world actually. But because I've seen members everywhere. I went to New Zealand and there were some members there, people I'd trained in the Yorkshire School of Psychiatry. I was with them in New Zealand, which was wonderful. Tried to persuade them all to come back. But I've done a lot of traveling around the UK, talking. I have a sort of standard talk, priorities for the president, which I gave, which really said what work I was doing, and then would get feedback from people. So that was really useful. So I could say where I was coming from, get the feedback. And if people didn't agree what I was doing, at least they could hear why. So it was always a two-way conversation. In the end, you have to make a decision. In the end, you listen to your members, and then you have to make a decision based on majority view. And then, of course, we have council, and council has people from the divisions, people from the faculties, all sorts of other reps, the trainee reps. So council is a big kind of guide of the policy as well.
So, like Donald Trump, you're extremely active on Twitter. Luckily
I don't
enough,
like something that starts like Donald Trump.
The similarities end there. So, how important are the social media in your role?
So yeah, Twitter's been really important to me. It has its bad sides. there are days when I feel really fed up with it, but also it has its massively good side. And I know a lot of members, I engage with a lot of members on Twitter, so a lot of them talk to me on Twitter, but I know there are some that don't actually talk to me that are there. So again, I'll go to places and people will say, oh yes, I saw you were, here last week, and they've seen it on Twitter. So in my travels around the UK and around the world, all that is funded, my expenses are paid for by the members' fees. So I think they have a right to know what I'm doing, where I'm going, what I'm up to. So it makes me visible. If you wanted to know where I was, what I was doing, you always could on Twitter. Every day you could see where I was, what I was up to, where I was going. And then I've also learned a lot from the people who've not been happy with psychiatry. So there's quite a strong anti-psychiatry voice on Twitter, which again, at times it can be a bit overwhelming, but it has been useful. And I hadn't really met that before. So as an old age psychiatrist, I've mostly got on with my patients. There's been the odd moments, but on the whole, they've been pleased with me. And my feedback, it's community, old age psychiatrists working in the community. So I haven't had to do the very difficult things that the inpatient psychiatrists have to do. So I hadn't really met that kind of, anti-psychiatry voice before. And it's been good. It's been good to hear that and to meet some of the people and to listen to the stories and to think how we could improve things.
Yeah, it's interesting because one of your followers got me off guard and gave me a new perspective on how important social media can be. Actually, she wrote the following. She wrote that struggling in a non-progressive professional environment, which discourages critical thinking, Twitter has been a great source of peer support and learning. And she was coming from Pakistan, which was something that I haven't really thought about.
Yeah. Oh, it's been fantastic for connecting with people across the world. And you can get to know someone quite well on Twitter, and then you suddenly discover actually they're in Australia. I hadn't even realised that before. I tend to look now when I'm talking to someone on Twitter. I look and I hope, but not everyone puts where they are. But that's been fantastic for learning and sharing. And then you go somewhere and you meet people. And actually, I went to the APA, the American Psychiatric Association meeting in San Francisco. And I actually met somebody there who I think you'd call her an anti-psychiatrist. She has very strong views about psychiatry and medication. But we met up for a coffee, and it was so useful to hear what she had to tell me. So no, on the whole, Twitter has been brilliant.
I mean, you got to admit though that sometimes it feels like walking on eggshells. Especially with trolls lurking in the dark corners of the web. Waiting for one even remotely ambiguous or controversial tweet to unleash their spite and hatred. Moreover, being the president of an organization like the Royal College of Psychiatrists, I think it brings an additional layer of complexity. You see, I find it extremely interesting when organizations start being perceived as independent entities, far greater than the individuals comprising them, like a dark Kafkaesque castle looming above you. So how can you keep your identity? How can you keep your voice? How can you still be Wendy while being the face of an organization?
Yeah, well, I think if you look at my Twitter feed, that's what I've done. It has bad sides as well. So there's a little thing at the top of my Twitter feed saying, this doesn't represent the views of, this represents just my views. And the college comms team's been very good, but I think at times it must have been awkward for them having a president who I am the president, and yet what I was tweeting was my own views. And slightly dangerous. I know that all my tweets are kept, so there's no point deleting anything. And people who don't like me will often come back and literally I'll come back and say, here's your tweets in 2017. So yeah, just about all my tweets are screenshots, all of them. So there's no, if I say something, I can't just delete it. There'll be no way back from that. So you have to be careful. And it has been slightly odd, and I don't think many of the other presidents tweet in the way that I do. It is me. It is my voice. But I wouldn't have learned as much. I wouldn't have learned as much if I hadn't done it that way.
And as you were sailing through the last few months of your presidency, COVID came into your life. So how has the pandemic affected the college, and how has it adjusted to this whole mess?
So the college has been amazing. The college staff have been amazing. As you know, it all happened really quickly. So I've actually got some stuff on my WhatsApp from kind of near the beginning of March, when we were starting to think we might have to do something. And we had a meeting, and I suggested that we cancelled all events over 100 people until the end of March. That was the first thing we wanted to do. And then we were all a bit, oh, are we overreacting? And then within a few weeks, we'd gone to cancelling everything, cancelling the Congress, closing the college, all the staff moving to work at home. And the staff were just wonderful, because they had no time at all to move to working. It's a big thing working from home. A lot of them have got small children that they're looking after, children that they're trying to school, unstable Wi-Fi connections, people in flat shares. It's been really difficult for them. Plus a load of them, their work completely undone. So CALC, our conference and learning centre, all the stuff that they'd spent so long setting up was just cancelled. They didn't complain, they didn't moan, they just got on with it. They have been brilliant. The hardest thing to cancel was the exams. So, we had to cancel some sittings of the papers, not the cast yet, thank goodness. We were okay with that. But we had to cancel some exam sittings. I really, really didn't want to do that. We went right to the wire, and I was having discussions on Twitter with various people about maybe trying to set up local exam centres. But in the end, we couldn't do it, and I felt really bad about that, because trainees had studied really hard to take the exam. We now have them all digitalised, so fingers crossed, got all my fingers crossed, that we should be able to deliver the exams online, both the written and the cast. I'm sure there'll be hitches along the way, but we should be able to do it. So and then we wrote a whole suite of advice. So as we kind of, but before we went into lockdown, advice started appearing on the NHS England website. Nothing about mental health, nothing at all. So the college policy team worked really, really hard, non-stop, literally non-stop, for about a fortnight. So there's an amazing email chain, which I think I should find and keep, where I woke up about 2 a.m. and thought, oh my goodness, we need to alter this on the website. Emailed Kim, who's our director, really never thinking she'd reply. She replied immediately. Then she emailed Peter, who kind of runs the website. Next thing, he's done it. So the college website was altered at 2 a.m. because none of us could sleep. I mean, I don't know if you remember the beginning of COVID, but it was really hard to sleep. I think most people were struggling with sleep at the beginning when we were all so anxious. So the college has been amazing, and it will come out of this quicker, because like all institutions, we were a bit slow. Producing our policy documents, we were a bit slow. We won't produce everything in 2 weeks in the future, but I think we'll do it quicker.
No, I honestly think that you did an amazing job. Everyone in the college did an amazing job to just keep things going, and this is like really appreciated by everyone. So let's lighten up a bit. I mean, given summaries here, if you were to describe your presidency with ice cream flavors, what would those be?
Ice cream flavors? Oh, every flavor, absolutely every flavor, a whole mixture. Vanilla, chocolate, coffee, raspberry ripple, mango, honeycomb chunks, everything. Everything. Such a mixture. I mean, I've had the most amazing experiences. Such a mixture of things, and they're all locked away inside my memory for me to take out and look at my leisure soon.
But something that you feel particularly proud about during these last years?
I think traveling about and meeting people is the thing I'm most proud of, because I've really done that, and that's quite hard. Train travel in the UK was not the best. The trains are actually running better now. I made my last ever train journey. I had to go down to London to clear my office and clear the college flat, and I made the journey there and back by train. And I think there were 5 people on the train going down and 6 coming back, and the train was completely on time. In fact, it was early. But before the pandemic, the trains were pretty awful. You could pretty much guarantee that any train journey would go wrong, and constantly missing connections and being late. So that was all quite hard. But I'm proud of the way I did it. I'm proud of the way I travelled a lot and met lots of people.
And what is the next big challenge for psychiatry, you think?
For psychiatry? I guess coming out of the pandemic, there's going to be a big challenge. So there's going to be a challenge about how we deliver services. there's been a huge amount of online delivery. I work with the elderly. None of my patients have internet access, so I've been delivering the service on the phone, which actually has worked surprisingly well. And I've discovered I can actually even assess new patients with dementia on the phone, which I thought wasn't possible. And then the old age faculty of the college produced a document telling you how to. So I read it because I have to read everything. I read everything before it goes on the website. All the COVID stuff has been read by me and Adrian. I thought, oh, it's interesting. So I've had a go, and it works. Yeah, it works. But a lot of stuff's been delivered online. There've been some major advantages, but also some disadvantages. So I think psychiatry is going to have to find its way through that. What do we do in the future? How much do we deliver online? How much do we do face-to-face? We can't do away with all face-to-face stuff, but some patients may prefer online, and it might be good for some follow-ups. It is good not to have to travel. Very good for people not to have to sit in a waiting room. Much better for them to be waiting in their own home. So that's going to be a big challenge, how we deal with that. Then there's going to be the fallout from the pandemic, which we don't know yet. We don't know what that's going to do to mental health. I can't think it's going to do a lot of good. And there's going to be all the people who have been really ill. So all the people who've been ventilated and have been in IT, and there's a lot of those. But thousands of people now have been in IT and been ventilated, and they will have, a lot of them will have PTSD. Will be all the staff who saw terrible things. So psychiatry is going to have to cope with all that as well.
Psychiatry will have to cope. I mean, we will all have to cope. Where does Wendy go next? What's next after college?
Waiting to see. I'm waiting for that call. The first thing I'm going to do is tidy my house, which hasn't been tidy for 3 years. So that's I'm going to tidy my house and just sort of get on top of my life with it. That's the first thing to do. I already know I'm going to chair the clinical group of Equally Well. I don't know if you've heard of Equally Well, but that is it's a coalition looking at why people with serious mental illness still die 20 years earlier. And we haven't really shifted that figure much. So I'm chairing a group that's going to look at that, see what we can do about that. The Gatsby Welcome thing still has another year to run, the neuroscience project. So I'll still be doing the neuroscience project, which is lovely, because I'll still be involved in the college for another year. And my clinical work. So the clinical work, I've been doing 1 day a week. You can't do it that seriously in one day a week. So I'm hoping to now do a couple of days and do it a bit more seriously. I'm sure there'll be lots of things to do.
Fantastic. And you know what I need to do right now? I'm running out of battery. So give me 1 second.
Okay, while you charge yourself up.
So these are the problems that people have when you do things from home.
Yeah. Well, it's fair to say we've had a few technical challenges in putting this together, but we have overcome them with the help of my daughter's AirPods or whatever they're called. I've got things stuck in my ear. Things stuck in my ear that actually belong to my daughter, because we couldn't get the microphones to work following the disaster with the coffee falling on my keyboard. There we are. I kept talking. You're back.
Yes. You know what's so good about you, Prof? You know, one hears, you know, all the things that, you know, you achieved. And although, you know, the first reaction would be to feel small, you know, that, you know, oh God, you know, she's done all these things and, you know, I haven't done anything. But you're so fun and approachable that people I forget that you are the president of the Royal College of Psychiatrists. And, you know, I may even think that you are a member of a punk rock band.
Yes. Oh, no, I wasn't a member of a band. I was a fan. I was a punk rock fan. I'm not musical at all, sadly. Although a lot of the punk rock people weren't actually musical, were they? But no, I was never in a band. But I was a big fan, and I used to go to the concerts, and I used to push my way to the front. So if you're, I'm quite short, and if you're little, you can often get to the front. So I used to get to the front in my front clothes and my stilettos, and then I used to pogo in the front row.
Yes.
Yes. It's not done my feet any good. I wouldn't really advise it. It was great fun. It was great fun. I loved punk.
And you know, what's the whole deal with your cats?
Oh, my cats. I was hoping they would appear, but they're camera shy and they've vanished. Although if you look in the latest edition of Insight that's just come out, there's an article about me in it. And if you look at the picture, my cat Simba has photobombed the picture. he appears in the background because they're usually very shy. And a lot of cats have their own Twitter accounts, but mine won't. They're frightened of trolls, so they won't go on Twitter. They refuse to do that. But no, my cats. I love my cat. I love my cat. And I've really dropped an earpod now. Put it back in. I really love my cats, and that's I've missed them. So it's nice to be at home with them now.
I mean, to be honest, one of the main reasons that I don't have a cat is these things behind. I can't even think about a cat and playing with my records. It's going to be a nightmare.
They wouldn't do that. The cats wouldn't touch your records. No, they wouldn't be interested in them. They like soft furnishings. They'll scratch your sofa, but they wouldn't touch your records.
That's good. Okay, maybe I will consider that then. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time, especially on a Saturday morning. Professor Wendy, gentlemen, the president of the Royal College of Psychiatrists. And just like that, 30 minutes, a bit more, just flew by. Before you go back to your clinics, projects, science papers, or whatever else keeps your neurons firing, just a reminder that next week I am joined by Dr. Shubulade Smith, the clinical director for the forensic services at the Maudsley, but also a powerful voice for Black mental health and the advancement of mental health equality, a matter more prominent than ever as the pandemic exposed societal inequalities. So how has the pandemic affected forensic services? Is there racism in healthcare? Well, you bet there is. But you'll have to wait to find out more next Monday at 1 p.m. Until then, Pospo for Maudsley Learning, over and out.